Hello, 'tis I, Fat Cow. I want you to watch these two clips. I want you to have an open mind and just keep in the back of your head while watching this, not so much the narrative, but the way the narrative is being spoken, the arguably excessive amount of descriptive words used to tell these incidences, the body language, and then I will tell you what I'm thinking.
I don't want to admit this, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell y'all the truth. Hey you guys, so I wanted to make a video about something that I haven't really talked about really. Earlier I was letting Leia out, the puppy. So I was recently talking to someone who had no idea that I was in an abusive relationship before.
One of the things I want you to look out for is, retrospectively, so it's a bit difficult, what she says, what she had said immediately before she twirls her hair, either with one or two fingers. Because I'm of the opinion, and this is through intensive observation of Anne Boleyn Reid's mannerisms when they are spinning a yarn, let's say, tells they have. So this is important.
So I was recently talking to someone who had no idea that I was in an abusive relationship before.
I would like to speculate that at that point Amber was lying about having spoken to another person about being in a relationship before. This is a setup in order to tell the story.
I had the door open and I swear to God, a giant ass spider hopped into the living room.
Please note how many times she uses the word hopped or hopping when describing the spider, and ask yourself how often you've described a spider's movements as being hopping, as opposed to how many times you use the word hop or hopping to describe a frog, maybe. Adding quantifying statements in order to try to persuade somebody that what you're saying is the truth is arguably an indication that somebody's lying. I swear to God, honestly, would I lie to you? Things of that nature.
Now, I from firsthand witnessed my dad abusing my mother my whole childhood.
Did you see that? Let me show you again.
Witnessed.
She smiles immediately before talking about the abuse of her mother by her father. She's smiling. It's a bit strange, don't you think?
When Leia was already outside, how am I gonna get Leia? But then how am I gonna get the big ass spider that just hopped in the living room?
Someone's been a tad theatrical, I'd like to say. This is spoken in a manner that Anne Boleyn doesn't normally speak. The pitch is different, the speed is different, the amount of words are different, the amount of extra adjectives is different, the animation is different. Things are not how they seem.
There were knives involved, hair pulling to the point of wads of hair would just come out in his hands. I witnessed my mom having a broken nose. broken teeth, bruises upon bruises, and there has also been a few broken bones involved, and that was all coming from my father.
Watch this bit again.
Broken teeth, broken teeth, broken teeth.
What's so amusing about your mother having her teeth broken by your father? What's funny? Where's the joke? Additionally, why are you telling us this story about your mother and your father being physical with each other as if you're telling gossip? You're not talking about the fucking Kardashians. You're not telling us about your crush on Billie Eilish. You're talking about the abuse of your mother at the hands of your father.
So I ignored the spider for half of a second. I told myself I will never be with someone who lays a hand on me.
Depending on what school of thought you subscribe to, you will either embrace the idea of body language, verbal cues and micro expressions as being indicators of deception, or you will think of it as a pseudoscience. I am personally of the mind that micro expressions particularly and verbal cues do carry some weight. I mean, there is an entire forensic psychology branch, let's say, of specialists in the UK that work hand in hand with the police force, helping them decipher whether or not people are telling the truth or not. There is an entire field of study on micro expressions. In fact, if this subject is something that interests you, I highly, highly, highly recommend you watch the TV series Faking It, Tears of a Crime. Put the picture here, which has linguistic analysis, micro expressions and body language analysis, and the vocabulary that's used when lying. It is a fascinating TV series which basically analyses the behaviours of murderers before they're convicted in their public appearances and things like that, and what they say and what they do that has given them away prior to them actually being convicted. However, my point being this particular, micro expressions are almost universal in terms of the face. What we do with our face, we have very little control over. Body language can be tempered. Verbal, cues can be learnt or unlearnt, let's say. But if you watch somebody, an individual, long enough, you will learn their particular individual tells. And one of them, for Amber, is licking their lips when they're being deceptive.
And I hurried and grabbed Leia. My first true committed relationship. I've had a lot of random relationships,
unnecessary details. When you're trying to tell a story, when you're not trying to tell a story, when you're telling the truth, you tend to get directly to the point. You don't elaborate, you don't expand the narrative, you don't go into an entire trance of world building to set the scene, let's say. You just get to the point because it's the truth. You don't need added information to make it seem more true. Adding information that has no relevance to the story whatsoever, is basically quantifiers, again, like saying, trust me, I swear on my life. You feel when you're lying, the more information there is, the truer it will seem, when the reverse is true.
Don't even consider them though, but like my first like live-in relationship.
Another one of Amber's tells, in my opinion, through observation, is a pause, a deep inhale, and then quite a significant swallow before continuing onto the more pertinent details of this fabrication.
Was with a girl named Cassidy. I feel very strongly about this, and I feel like it's okay for me to say her name because she's transgender now, so she's not Cassidy no longer. So I'm able to say her name because she's a once was person. Like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, Gracie, my cat, well, Destiny's cat, but my cat now.
1. The theatrics. 2. The unnecessary quantifying detail. It doesn't matter whose cat it was.
So, her name was Cassidy, and it was first long distance, and I was living in Oklahoma for a bit of that time when it was long distance. By the way, she lived in Arizona, but when I first started talking to her, I was in California.
Again, unnecessary quantifiable details to make the story sound more true.
She goes booking it outside.
This sentence here, when she goes booking it outside, running like a ninja, was the sentence that confirmed to me, in my opinion, that this story was a fabrication. Because Amber doesn't normally, naturally speak in this manner. It's too theatrical. It's too, I'm telling you a story.
We were in love, thoroughly in love. We were together.
Amber also says a lot when she's not necessarily telling us the truth.
For, I want to say about a year and a half before I went there and like stayed with her for a month. So, my God. I was there for like 2 weeks, and I called my mom and I was like, oh my God, I miss you so much, because I was living with her and my grandma at the time. And on the phone, she told me, your grandma said you can't come back to Oklahoma. You can't come live with us. And I was like, what? Like, where do I go? I was really scared.
Another replay.
Your grandma said you can't come back to Oklahoma. You can't come live with us. And your grandma said you can't come back to Oklahoma. You can't come live with us. And your grandma said you can't come back to Oklahoma. You can't come live with us. And
why so happy? You'd just been made homeless. Why does this thought, amuse you so much? Was that a lie as well? Was it? Were you really kicked out of your home by your grandmother? Or maybe, just maybe, this was a good way of, forcing, you like that word, don't you, the situation and injecting yourself permanently into Casey's life.
I threw Leia down as fast as possible. I had literally nowhere to live.
Do you remember that time I was made homeless? Yeah. Good times.
And Cassidy's mom was pissed because I think she knew right then and there she's going to have to take on, me. Because I had nowhere to go. I didn't have a job because I was in Arizona just for a month. So, and I ran out that door like the speed of friggin' lightning.
Not being rude. Well, maybe a little bit. But that sentence alone running like the speed of friggin' lightning, should tell you all the story's not true, because, well, it depends on your definition of speed and how fast lightning is, I guess.
I felt blissful in a way, if that's the right word to use. Like, it just felt really good. We got along really well. And then after about, I want to say 6 months or so, things started, kind of changing and shifting. Gracie's okay. She's in the house. Things started, kind of changing and shifting. I don't really know if I want to go into grave detail.
She is literally talking as if she's spilling tea. You're talking about, allegedly, you being abused by somebody you were in love with. You're not spilling tea.
We still loved each other a lot. After 6 months, we'd been together for over 2 years, and we were living together and this and that, and I noticed we started arguing a little bit more.
Did we, Amber? Did we start arguing a little bit more?
Just over stupid stuff. I can tell you that right now. Leia's okay. She's in the house. And I still remember the first time she ever got physical.
I forgot the other tell Amber does when they're fabricating the narrative. The more Amber is, the more her hands move. Watch any video when you know she's telling a lie, and watch her hands. They go nuts.
We had a laundry room in the apartment complex we were living in, and we were walking to the laundry room, and I remember back then I would do our laundry for us. I didn't really like people touching my laundry. I still really don't, but I let Destiny do it because I trust her. But I had this weird thing with people touching my laundry.
Oh boy, that didn't age well. Unless, shit-covered washcloths don't count as laundry.
But then I came back in here and I'm like, cool, there's a giant hopping spider somewhere in the house.
How many of you describe a spider's movement as hopping? How many? There's jumping spiders, but spiders scuttle, don't they? They scuttle. They run. They don't hop. But using the word hopping to describe the movements of a spider is very convenient when it turns out the spider's actually a frog. Don't you think?
She was carrying her clothes. I'm pretty sure I remember, and I was carrying mine. And then I want to say this happened. It's been 6-7 years, so memories are kind of fading here and there.
Again, you're not spilling the tea, and I just, speaking for myself, because that's the only person I can speak for, I can tell you in minute detail everything that was said, what I was wearing, the time of day, the time of year, the date roughly, well, the month, every detail of when my husband laid hands on me. And that memory doesn't fade. You just push it to the back of your mind.
But I do remember us being on the sidewalk, And I remember her dropping what was in her hands, and she took me by the throat and she started yelling at me. But in reality, it was actually a hopping frog.
Oh, look, how wonderfully serendipitous. The hopping spider turned out to be a hopping frog. It's funny how they both hopped. You didn't have to say the word hopped when you said it was a spider either. A frog. We know frogs hop. You didn't need to add the word hopping to, add to the validity of the story, let's say.
I was like, what? And I think at the time, what shocked me the most was the fact that she was doing it in such a public place. Like, there was nobody around that I remember.
I've gotten cold. The first time it happened to me in a public place, I bared absolutely no consideration whatsoever to my surroundings and the fact there were people there. Never entered my head to think about, oh my God, how extra horrible this is because we're out in public. I thought about it afterwards a bit, but at the time, I couldn't have given a shit where I was and who was watching.
And I was crying. She literally was having me by the throat, just screaming at me. And then, she let go, obviously.
What a very peculiar way to end that story. Well, she let go, obviously. That just feels really, really off. She let go, obviously. That's really peculiar.
And I think I was so shocked and so numb to the situation that I kind of just let it be. Honestly, that is the truth.
Ooh, a quantifying double. Honestly, that's the truth. Please, sir, you have to believe me. I said honestly.
I didn't ever think twice about it. Oh my God, is she gonna start abusing me? Nothing like that. Which is weird because of the childhood that I came from, right? But we just went on.
The way she's telling this story is just wrong. It's off. The way she tells both these stories is wrong.
And she never really did that again. She would randomly pinch me if I made her really mad. And I didn't even think anything of that then either. Honestly, I didn't at all. And I want to say, we've been together for about 3 years now at this point, and I feel myself slowly, I stopped being sexually attracted to her. I loved her though. I know that. I don't know if it was a best friend thing, but I stopped just feeling that connection, I guess. So when it came to intimacy, I want to say about a little bit after 2 years of being together, it started to dwindle. It was definitely my fault. This is when things got really bad. I don't even know how to share this, but I'm gonna have to. Destiny knows all about this, by the way. It's something I really needed to let her know about me. Okay, so Cassidy was very sexually strived. Is that even a thing? I don't know. She really thought I was attractive. She really was sexually attracted to me, and she always wanted to have sex. And I stopped feeling that for her. I didn't tell her that. I would just make up things oh, I don't feel good, or oh, I'm on my period, even though I wasn't. And just little things like that. And it made her fucking pissed. When you say no to someone, whether you've been with them for a month or whether you've been with them for 6 years, if you say no to a sexual act, your partner should accept that. That is where I firmly stand. But she didn't. and she would literally sit there and beg me. At first, it was like cute little begs, like, oh, come on, baby, whatever. But then as time gradually went on, it became, you're gonna fucking touch me whether you like it or not. And I was like, you can't force me. And little did I know she can. That's when she started punching me a lot. She would aim for my belly. I don't think she ever actually hit me in the face. Her favorite spot was my stomach. She would punch me really hard in my stomach. She'd punch me like around right here a lot. She would punch me on my arms, and she would continuously do it until I agreed to make love to her or have sex, whatever you want to consider it. So not only was I being physically abused, but I was pretty much being like raped. That is what I consider it.
Right. My opinion now. We know the allegations that Amber made against Casey are false, so I don't need to go into that any further. I have thought for a long time, since the allegations made against Cassidy, that video, when I knew instantly she was telling a story, that it made me think of the Gracie story and the way Amber told that, because the similarities are outstanding. I believe categorically with my entire chest that Amber set up that story. That story did not happen. Set up that story for the eventual escape of Gracie. Now bear in mind, Amber had said few things verbally, but also through Ask FM. Amber had stated she really wanted a kitten of her own to start from scratch, and also that Destiny said Amber couldn't get a kitten of her own until Gracie passed. Suddenly, Amber's telling stories about Gracie escaping. Within 9 days, within a 9-day time frame of Amber having moved in, Gracie decides to escape due to a mishap from a hopping spider who turns out to be a hopping frog. After that, immediately, we see the Wasabi Fund. And the kitten, lo and behold, suddenly appears, because Amber's gotten a kitten of her own to have from the very beginning, suddenly, within a time frame I would argue didn't give enough time to even find Gracie. Gracie was replaced with Wasabi very, very quickly. It wasn't even a month after her disappearance that Amber got Wasabi. And we all saw how Amber was after Gracie escaped. She didn't give a shit. She did everything in her power to change the subject whenever it came in. And she was so insincere when talking about Gracie's disappearance. It was palatable. Amber either deliberately let Gracie out or gave her to somebody else. Do you know what? Quantifiable statements be damned. I'd bet my life on it. So, in my opinion, Amber lied, very obviously, and we know this, about the abuse from Casey. I also think Amber lied about being kicked out by her grandmother in order to move in with Casey. I think that story was a fabrication to inject herself permanently in Casey's life. And I definitely believe that the story about Gracie escaping the first time with the hopping spider and the hopping frog was a fabrication that was setting up the eventual escape of Gracie. You got rid of the cat so you could fulfill your wish of having a kitten of your own to have from the very beginning. You, Amber, are a bitch.